Do any of you have the sneaking suspicion that Rary will return? Because I certainly do. In our last Archon quest, we successfully repelled Rary with our main characters and sent him off into this broken/shattered moon.
Your power against me?
Just like how you stole Kuvaki. Look through here.
Now, obviously, it took a lot of work to defeat him. I mean, we even had to get Kave's help for an example, but I have a really high suspicion that Rary will return eventually, since, we didn't necessarily defeat him. We just, repelled him, so I guess that is kind of like a victory. But the point I'm making here is that Rary will definitely return, but I don't think he's going to be the main villain of Nodcry anymore. I have a feeling that he's, completely done with Nodcry, and he'll probably pop up a little later, maybe in Snezhnaya or Conria or something, whatever update, and if I'm wrong, don't quote me on this, but whatever. But I have a feeling that, well, obviously, the main villain that we're going to be getting in Nodcry is
the Doctor.
Nodcry is still in immense danger, and the man behind the slaughter is none other than Dottore. And you might be asking, my glorious King Cole, what is Dottore gonna do? What does he have planned? And don't worry, I'll tell you. So before we get into the video, I just want to give a quick little disclaimer. I'm still learning the Genshin lore as I'm reading through a lot of books, artifacts, and catching up on past World Quest and Archon Quest to jog my memory a little bit. So I'm still trying to dip into the lore a lot more. So if I say anything in this video that's incorrect, please let me know down in the comments, because this would be really helpful, because I want to try to make a lot of lore videos on my channel. So if I say anything wrong or I misread anything, please let me know in the comments. It would be greatly appreciated. But anyways, we're going to be talking about what Dottore is going to do in Nodcry and some theories as to what, kind of evil he might be doing. So let's talk about it. So before we get into the theories, I want to give a little context, a little backstory on Dottore. Dottore was a student at the academia where he started to explore his weird love for experimenting and his interest in robots like ruin guards and other mechanisms, which I'll definitely be getting into later in the video. So please remember that he was really interested in ruin guards and other mechanisms during his time at the academia, and he even risked people's lives to try to experiment on that, so keep that in mind. But what really piqued his interest during his time at the academia was Elazar, disease that slowly withers away at the human body. And what does he do with this newfound interest, you may be asking? He experiments on kids. And adults, but it's kind of messed up how he experiments on kids, but that's beyond me. I also forgot to mention that Dottore was a part of the academia's investigation team, and weird things started to happen around as, Dottore was too invested in his machines and also started to unalive some of his teammates, which is where the allegations originally started. And the allegations mainly stemmed from this note: the deceased Daster, multiple trauma wounds, lacerations, concussions on internal organs, hemorrhage, but the fatal injury is on the wound on the throat, fractured hyoid bone, mechanical asphyxia, unable to ascertain the cause of death. And all signs pointed to him, so eventually he was booted from the academia. After his expulsion from the academia, he was recruited to the Fatui by none other than Piero, who saw his disgusting potential in him. From there, Dottore was stationed to Mondstadt, where he defeated Ursa the Drake, a powerful dragon that had been an immense threat to Mondstadt for ages, and Dottore easily took it out, showing his strength. And after that, Dottore created clones of himself, which I'll be talking about here in a bit. But something that I really want to expand on first, that I've been absolutely going crazy over, and something I've been hyperfixating on, is Dottore's clones. Now, if we recall back in Sumeru, he deleted all his clones, or erased all his clones when he was making a deal with the Gnosis with Nahida in exchange for information, Gnosis, and all that. But what really interests me about these clones is where they were scattered, how they were different versions of Dottore, and what exactly they were doing. We have the main segment of Dottore, the Prime Dottore, the one that we see now, the one that's probably in Nodcry as we speak, and the one that didn't get erased. Now, this Prime Dottore is who he's really like, and all his clones were different versions of him, so some of them could have been inherently, I wouldn't say good, but a lot less evil than the Dottore we saw now. But one of the main things that really interests me about these clones was that he retained all the information from those clones. So if these clones, I'm going to assume that they were spread across all 7 nations of Teyvat, so one in Mondstadt, one in Liyue, one in Inazuma, and so on. So that means he was collecting information around each of these regions. So I want you all to keep in mind the fact that he was able to retain all the knowledge that he got from these different nations, and he was pretty much everywhere all at once. And with him everywhere at once, he was able to spread his clones across, and he was experimenting, gathering knowledge, and I feel like all of this was essentially to complete his goal, and part of the main reason why he made these clones is to get more work done, because something to do with time. And the reason I mention time is because it's constantly being mentioned when Dottore is around. For example, Dottore and Colombina's little interaction in Winter Night's Lazo.
I must say, you're looking very young today, Doctor.
And 2, when Colombina mentions that time is slipping in the Nodcry trailer.
Time is short. The moons fall.
And 3, when Dottore talks with Nahida and mentions plucking out the eyes I place in the dimension of time, and when he constantly talks about time in almost every conversation that he has. But I am conjuring up a new theory about time, so I'll leave it as Dottore is in a race against time. So what we can grab from this is Dottore as a conniving, lying, evil little rat. Bird. A conniving, evil, lying bird. But from his backstory, which we got from several books and notes around Sumeru, is Dottore is fueled by his fascination of experiments and seeing what can happen from them and having zero care in the world as to what happens to the person he's experimenting on. But what exactly is his end goal? Now, I think his main goal is to ascend past divinity or obtain divinity or past humanity to reach the level beyond gods, to essentially knock Celestia off the grid. It's also important to note that according to Zoroastrianism origins, the name Zandik can be translated to heretic, so obviously he's not too in favor with the gods. He intends on creating gods to rival Celestia's authority, as we saw in the last Sumeru Archon quest with Scaramouche. But the reason as to why this is his goal is kinda unclear, but from my perspective at least, I'd hope he wants to do this out of pure enjoyment and he just wants to see a new age into that. And also, in a conversation with Nahida, Dottore mentions that the current world doesn't satisfy him and it lacks an important dimension, which is time. So he made different versions of himself of like different ages so he can, observe the world a little bit better. But since the current world doesn't satisfy him, I automatically assume that he wants to change something into that, explaining why I think he wants to change the course of that or put something in motion to change all the events that's going to happen. And honestly, I would like it if a character didn't have like some type of sad backstory, who was just, morally evil and just was born like really evil, and obviously he views people as less than. But obviously, knowing Genshin, there's probably going to be some backstory from his childhood or something that was done to him to make him like this. And keep in mind, Dottore is centuries old. But now that we got the little stuff out of the way of his backstory and his goals, which don't worry, I'll expand on a little bit later, I just want to give like a quick little recap, let's get into the juicy part. But before we do, you should definitely subscribe if you haven't. Anyways, let's talk about what Dottore will do in Nodcry. Now, my first theory was mainly talking about him building a machine strong enough to rival a god or beat a god. Now, Dottore had always been fascinated by machines, and I'm going to read a few different notes from Zandik at his time at the academia to try to like give a little bit more context as to how interested he was in these ruin guards or all these machines, and how he has so much like knowledge surrounding them and how much he really wants to experiment on them. So without further ado, I'll get into it now. It should be impossible to repair this Titanic machine's primary weapon systems using components salvaged from the abandoned mechanisms, but to avoid attracting the attention of the other team members, I have simply made some basic measurements for now. Any further experiments must wait for another day. The things that the sages call the Suda's flow are nothing but products of sedimentation caused by a perturbation of the elements. To think they would use these as the core of the seal, laughable in the extreme. This note really sticks out to me as it shows how careful Dottore was in his schemes and how invested he was in repairing these machines, seeing how they function and what he could possibly do with it, which only supports a theory that he is just going to be building something terrible and what we'll possibly see in Nodcry. But he's getting so much experience with these mechanisms, and I can only imagine that he's building some sort of big weapon. As I thought, it seems that the components I found in a large cluster of mechanisms can be found in the Garabad specimen. This golem's main weapon system has suffered less damage than that of the previous machine. The dimensions and structures match previous records perfectly. Despite its size, its workmanship displays a high level of precision. It seems like such golems were all designed without the implementation of gyroscopes, causing the interior structure to tilt constantly and simultaneously with the machine's movement. The piloting trial had to be suspended after half a minute due to severe psychological side effects caused by the disrupted balance. I speculate that its pilot may have to undergo modification to their vestibular system, or wore specialized adhesive boots and gloves. It's a shame that documents regarding its energy supplies have been lost, and I have far too important of a mission to accomplish to afford to start from scratch. If not... Now, it's really fascinating to me how he just didn't burn the note to make sure no one found it. I mean, it kind of looks shady from this note, but obviously we can see that Zandik really didn't care what happened with this note. But what's really interesting to me at the end was he mentioned that his goal is far too important to accomplish to start from scratch, which shows he's pretty much in some sort of time crunch. So why would he leave it for someone to find? Did he want someone to find it? Which obviously is not the case, since towards the end he starts to talk about his mission and how it's too important to accomplish to afford to start from scratch. So obviously this kind of shows that he's in a time crunch already.
After conquering the divine gaze, he will make his next move.
Someone seems to have burnt the contents in a hurry. Only a few words remain legible now. Thank goodness, Zandik reacted quickly, otherwise the whole team would be in serious trouble. The terrifying killing machine has stopped. Zandik insisted on bringing it back to the academia to be disassembled and reverse engineered. That was absolutely ridiculous. Sage Sharma reprimanded him and removed him from the author list. We buried Dasar Sore and sent the wounded back. Looks like this field research has come to an end. Now this is where it gets a little interesting, as I think Zandik got a little careless here, which is kinda unlike him. He wanted to bring this killing machine back to the academia and pretty much research it, but obviously the academia rejected this idea since, you know, it's a killing machine. And I know investigating it would be kind of interesting, but at the same time, why would anyone agree to this? And Dottore is way too smart to just think that, oh, they'll definitely say yes to this. So obviously he put some thought into it and was willing to take a chance to see if he could, you know, investigate it to a little more extent or a deeper extent here. And this is also when he kind of got rid of one of his team members. Now, Zandik's time at the academia is something to take note of, as obviously he didn't care that he got expelled or he would get expelled, since he was really careless during his whole time. I mean, mentioning that he wants to investigate something that unalive people is just beyond me, as he's too intelligent to just get caught up like that. And I will 100% say this, Zandik is definitely the type to get away with murder, so the fact that he got caught up for it means that he had a goal in mind when he was going to the academia, and he knew what he had to accomplish, and once he did that, he really didn't care what happened, and he used academia to get a further look at these different machines and mechanisms. And the main reason why I say he was using the academia was because his goal was already established before he even came there. He was talking about his goal in his notes, which is suspected to be unclear, but again, I have a feeling that he wanted to build something, and that's why he was so invested in the machines and mechanisms that Tsumeru had to offer. And after he got some of the experience at the academia of researching, investigating, and taking notes about these different mechanisms, he started to experiment with them. Now, with all those notes in mind, I also want to take a moment to talk about the Genshin manga / comics and talk about the Dottore segment, or Zandik's segment. So basically, Dottore had this henchman called Mr. Krupp, who ended up getting pew 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 by Dottore. Now, Dottore took Mr. Krupp's body and turned him into this cyborg / mech thing that was honestly horrific. And it's really interesting to me how he was able to do this, as he was able to create a lifeless body into pretty much a living machine, and he used his body parts to create that machine and give him life. So obviously Dottore likes to experiment with not only the dead but living, so who knows, maybe Senora might come back, maybe he might experiment on Senora and create her into a machine. No, I'm joking. I'm sorry, deluded Senora fans. She's not coming back. We also saw that Dottore made the Shoki no Kami, and which was what we saw in the whole Wander / Scaramouche quest, and when he was able to ascend pretty much to a god level, and we almost lost if we didn't have Nahida. So really makes me wonder what's going to happen in Nodcry, since we don't have that level of knowledge. with us present there, unless Nohito wants to come back for round 2. But basically, Dottore obviously is no stranger to experimenting with building machines like the Shogun Okami, or creating people into some different type of cyborgs like we saw with Mr. Krupp. And once again, with the notes that we saw, he's really interested in machines. So it really makes me think that we're going to get some type of big boss in Nodcry. Obviously, there's like little to no way that he didn't know that a sinner was, you know, going across Nodcry, or maybe he was aware and this gave him the perfect opportunity to work in the shadows. So whatever Dottore is doing, we would have no knowledge of since we were too busy fighting off the sinner. Now also there is a chance that Dottore wants to bring back the sinner to cause more, you know, mayhem, but I doubt that he's going to be the one to bring Rere back. I have a feeling he'll once again appear later on within the story. But one thing's for certain is Dottore wants to change whatever is going on into that. And he's gonna have some type of lore drop that'll probably change the story for us forever, since he already revealed that the sky is fake. So obviously he had this knowledge. He has all this knowledge due to probably his clones and him experimenting on different things, and him, like, obviously his knowledge is like way past from what we can expect. So Dottore is incredibly smart, and there's like a lot of things that he could be doing in Nodcry. My second theory is a little bit more interesting. It's probably a little bit more of a stretch. Is Dottore is going after the ancient moon remnants. Now, from the Notland Archon quest, Moika tells us this.
Such fragments are known as ancient moon's remnants, relics of secret source technology from the era of the ancient dragons. Coincidentally, a small squad of Fatui infiltrated our borders around the same time it appeared. Our investigation revealed them to be the subordinates of the Doctor. Their stronghold is in Nodcry, a land with a long history not far from Snezhnaya. The people there can use a very special power. It's said that this mysterious power predates even the 7 elements of Tevat. Ancient moon's remnants, the Doctor, a mysterious power. The project that connects all 3 must be ambitious indeed.
But the reason why Dottore is so interested in the ancient moon remnants is because it's probably linked to the Dragon King, who had primordial flame, which this flame is incredibly strong. This flame was said to be able to burn anything into that, and if this flame can burn anything into that, what's stopping it from burning Irminsul? As we saw in the Winter Night's Lazo, where, you know, Dottore was standing over Irminsul as it was burning down.
Now honestly, these theories are connected to each other, but honestly, I just kind of wanted to separate them to make it a little bit easier to follow. The ancient moon remnants will be his primary source of power, and what will make whatever he's doing in Nodcry unbelievably hard to beat, as the ancient dragon civilization was heavily advanced, despite it being way back in time. And their power is not to be taken lightly, so I assume he's drawing power or trying to grasp how their technology worked. And since Dottore is in Nodcry, we can just assume that he's drawing all the Kuvaki power, which can be used to power machines. So he's definitely experimenting with this power and finding a way to completely harness it. So with all this power at his disposal, his creation will be unlike anything we've seen.
That's what I mainly think will happen in Nodcry, and let me know if you guys have any interesting theories, or if I was wrong about anything, please let me know. I really just want to open room for discussion on what we think might happen with Dottore, as honestly I really like his character. I like how we have actually like a villain that really does not care and is really inherently evil with no backstory from what we can tell, and I hope they don't give him any type of redeeming backstory. I hope he is just pure evil, even if that means he isn't playable. So please let me know down in the comments any interest or thoughts that you had within this video, or something you want to expand on, or something I was wrong in. So please let me know, and of course if you haven't subscribed, please do. Really helps out a lot, and see you guys in the next one.